Welcome to a brand new episode of the Jampack Report today for November the 12th of 2020, PlayStation 5 launch day. Next Gen is officially in full swing. All three Next Gen consoles are out on the market right now, the X, the S, and the PlayStation 5. And no matter where you are playing, I hope you enjoyed. But for those PlayStation players today, congratulations on your new console if you did manage to snag a pre-order, or if you are able to pick one up at a digital storefront later on today. Of course, if you do still need a PlayStation 5, I would highly recommend following @Wario64 on Twitter. He is sending out links whenever any kind of site goes live with some new PlayStation 5 links, so that will keep you in the know. But it is an incredibly exciting time to be a player, and again, if you are a PlayStation fan, there are so many great games coming out. And if you do want to check out the hottest games launching this week, you can check out my episode of The Drop that came out last Sunday. I will have it linked down below, and it gives you a rundown of the biggest games coming out across the Xbox and the PlayStation platforms, both last gen and what is now current gen, the 9th gen. Ooh, it sounds good. But with that being said, today we do have some Xbox news to dive into because Xbox sold more consoles on the Series X and S launch than in any other 24-hour period. The next gen is here. With the Xbox Series X and S out there now alongside the PlayStation 5, we are in full swing. However, due to the pandemic, there was worry about supply and demand that was ushering in this new era. With financial strain on top of retail and delivery chaos, you would be forgiven for expecting sales numbers to be a little muted this launch. You would be wrong though. On Twitter, Xbox head Phil Spencer announced that the launch of the Xbox Series X and S consoles was the biggest the brand has ever had. In a tweet, Spencer confirmed that during launch, Microsoft sold more Xbox consoles than in any other 24-hour time period and in more countries. This is a promising sign for Xbox. The Xbox One trailed the PS4 during most of the last generation. Perhaps this suggests that things will be more competitive this time around. Of course, these figures include two consoles, the X and the S, with one being a very affordable option. That said, Microsoft has been making a compelling argument for its new hardware through Game Pass and that lower cost option. In a year where many are likely hurting financially, this is an impressive feat. Wonderful news, and for good reason. This is a much better Xbox than the Xbox One ever was, at least up until the Xbox One X, which was a phenomenal piece of hardware. But I love my Series X, and there are so many good games that are out there now, both through the power of backward compatibility and on top of that through enhancements. Now, of course, the launch lineup is understandably weak because, again, there is no Halo Infinite, but third parties are bolstering that, and the Xbox is a phenomenal place to play. It is now basically the center of my digital entertainment hub in my living room. It's where I watch HBO, YouTube, Netflix, and on top of that, it's where I play all of my games. Fantastic piece of hardware. Now, in terms of it being more competitive, I think that's a given because the Xbox hardware and the marketing team behind the scenes that are promoting this hardware are both doing incredible things. And so I think that Sony actually has legitimate competition. Now, with that being said, these launch figures, PlayStation's going to blow Xbox out of the water, it's no question, because there is a huge brand loyalty to PlayStation, and of course there is brand loyalty to Xbox as well, but in the world of PlayStation, the PS4 was huge. That was the console to have. It was the Xbox 360 of the 8th gen consoles. And so going into the 9th generation, it might take a bit for somebody to say, hey, that Xbox, it's alright. It's pretty cool. Maybe I'll pick one of those up. But when it comes to launch figures, Xbox has said it's the biggest sale in 24 hours. That's a pretty massive figure, to say the least. Now, Microsoft has no plans to start sharing their sales figures again. Actual sales figures again, I should say. If you do want those numerical values, that seems to not be in the cards. But it is nice to have a general idea that Xbox is selling very, very well, and for good reason, because the hardware looks beautiful, runs wonderfully, and of course there are two different SKUs, with the S being the much cheaper option for those that might still be running 1080p, and the X being the premium option for those that want the most out of their experience. Now, I did report on a story yesterday that seemed to show smoking Xbox consoles, and that was not the case. Microsoft says, please do not blow vape smoke into your Xbox Series X. We take all product safety reports seriously, and our products meet or exceed industry standards. Findings from our initial investigations do not align with some of the claims being broadly reported. However, we are in the process of investigating further. The original article is as follows. A series of viral videos purporting to show the new Xbox Series X pouring plumes of smoke from its air vent have been circulating on social media, but these appear to be fake. Multiple people have replicated the smoking effect by blowing vape smoke through the Xbox, prompting Microsoft itself to address the situation in a tweet that looks like a real non sequitur. A debunking video from the fan account Xbox Studio shows how to recreate the smoking effect even when the console is off. Others have suggested that smoke from an electrical fire would not look so similar to vape smoke. Some of the viral videos have also included strange sounds coming from the console. Although Microsoft has not issued an official statement on the viral videos at the time we originally published this story, they write at GameSpot, it has since responded by way of a PSA-style tweet in which it advises users that no, you should not, in fact, blow vape smoke into your $500 gaming machine. In potentially related news, Microsoft stock is up 0.046% in after-hours trading. But if you were curious if those videos were real yesterday, I was a bit speculative, but they are in fact not legitimate at all. And again, don't blow vape smoke into your Xbox Series X because, again, on top of that, it being stupid, you also have the risk of getting moisture in your Xbox Series X that could potentially lead to some damage down the line, and no one wants that. Now, one big part of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate is Xbox game streaming, and Microsoft is starting to test xCloud in 4 more countries on November the 18th. Microsoft will bring xCloud gaming to Android phones and tablets in 4 more countries next week. An invite-only preview will go live in Japan, Australia, Brazil, and Mexico on November the 18th. You can register today for a shot at an invitation if you're in one of those countries. The Xbox Game Streaming Preview app is available from Google Play Store, and it includes support for English, Spanish, Portuguese, and Japanese. Those who take part in the preview will have free access to a number of games, including first-party titles like Minecraft Dungeons, Halo the Master Chief Collection, and Forza Horizon 4. There will be some third-party options as well, such as Black Desert, PUBG, and Yakuza 0. Microsoft first ran public test of xCloud in a few countries in October 2019, and Xbox Cloud Gaming is now available in several markets through Game Pass Ultimate. The company is planning a full rollout for the feature in Japan, Australia, Brazil, and Mexico next year. This technology is still very, very good. Now, unfortunately, I still am running an iPhone, and iPhone does not support the Xbox game streaming technology. Now, Microsoft is working for a workaround right now that is supposedly coming in Q1 2021, but in terms of where it's at currently, if you do have an Android device, this is a great way to experience some of your games on the go. If you were in the market for that, or you have a very busy life and you are looking for a solution, then check out that Xbox library. But if you do want to check out xCloud and you happen to be in Australia, Japan, Mexico, or Brazil, you now have the option to do so starting next week. Now, speaking of strong third-party games, because essentially the third party is bolstering this launch, of course, especially on the Xbox. Sony has a lot of exclusives, but when it comes to Xbox, they have some. But ultimately, Game Pass is the big value there. However, Assassin's Creed Valhalla is spanning that gap, and it looks like it's off to a very strong start. Assassin's Creed Valhalla is off to a great start, it seems, judging by the enthusiastic Ubisoft press release which dropped into my email inbox today, Tom Phillips says at Eurogamer. We are still a little too early to hear about sales figures. Valhalla only turned up on PS5 today in countries where PS5 is actually available, but Ubisoft already has an impressive stat to share nonetheless. Twice as many people played Valhalla at launch on Tuesday, November the 10th, as played Ancient Greece set Odyssey on its debut back in October 2018. That's quite a leap, and one which speaks to the long-term success of Odyssey, which continued to rack up sales and positive word of mouth over time. Although parts of the world are in lockdown, and there are generally more consoles out there than a couple of years ago. Quote, "We are humbled by the reception from the players and extremely proud of what our teams have accomplished with Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which builds on the amazing success of its predecessors," Ubisoft boss Yves Guillemot said. In the context of COVID-19, shipping Assassin's Creed Valhalla on no less than 7 platforms is an incredible achievement for all of the teams involved around the world. We are excited to greet players on Xbox Series X and S and PlayStation 5 with a game that unleashes the power of new hardware. This paves the way for an exciting Christmas period, with Assassin's Creed Valhalla set to be one of the season's biggest hits. Another reason Valhalla is probably selling, it's good. In Eurogamer's Assassin's Creed Valhalla review, Tom Phillips wrote that it was another enormous Assassin's Creed saga lavishly designed with its sights set on story direction over narrative choice, end quote. Very good, fantastic. Assassin's Creed Valhalla looks like a great game, and my copy is coming in the mail today, so I will dive in over the weekend and essentially have my thoughts to share with you early next week on at least the preliminary first few hours that I will get to play. But very cool stuff here, and I will say it's kind of obvious because Odyssey came out at a time where there was no big hardware launching. The PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One were in full swing. There were millions and millions of these consoles around the world, and the game would sell well. But Assassin's Creed Valhalla is one of the biggest third-party games that has a lot of depth to it. It is a very thick RPG that takes advantage of the new hardware. So it's kind of a no-brainer that a lot of people, whenever they're going through the Target line to pick up their PlayStation 5, might go ahead and snag something like Assassin's Creed Valhalla and NBA 2K21 and Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War when it launches tomorrow. And that's a solid array of launch games, whether you're playing on PS5 or Series X. But ultimately, it is good to see it's off to a strong start, and I expect that to continue over the next few years. But speaking of fantastic games, the Game Awards 2020 nominees will be unveiled next week. With the Game Awards 2020 set to transpire in a little under a month at this point, the show's host and producer has now informed us of when this year's nominees will be revealed. On Twitter today, Jeff Keighley announced that this year's nominees for the Game Awards will be revealed 1 week from today on Wednesday, November the 18th. The titles that will be announced to be in the running for the show's many categories will be unveiled via a live stream, which has become a commonplace tactic in recent years. This stream will kick off at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, 9 a.m. Pacific Time, for those to tune in, or interested to tune in, as it occurs. It remains to be seen what games will end up snagging the most nominations in 2020, but Keighley himself has previously reiterated that games released outside of this calendar year can still be up to win certain honors. In addition, the highly anticipated release of Cyberpunk 2077 has been ruled out to be in consideration after the game's most recent delay to December. Speaking of Cyberpunk 2077, both of the latest title from CD Projekt Red and the Game Awards itself will be landing on the same day next month. This year's show will kick off on December the 10th and will feature a new accessibility category among other changes. So, of course, I will have my breakdown as usual of my voting process during the Game Awards 2020 voting period, but looking forward to seeing what games bring home the gold this year. There are so many good games. This year has been phenomenal for gaming. Now, of course, there have been plenty of delays, but thinking back to things as early as February and March and April, and I think back, The Last of Us Part 2 feels like a millennium ago. I mean, that's wild to me. But ultimately, that is going to be probably my vote for Game of the Year. Just going to go ahead and spoil that. But ultimately, if you want to check out the rest of the Game Awards 2020 nominees, they will be unveiled during next week's live stream on November the 18th. But that rounds out today's episode of the Jampack Report. If you enjoyed today's show, drop me a like down below and let me know what stories caught your eye. I would love to hear what you have to say, specifically in regards to Xbox selling more consoles in a 24-hour period on the Xbox Series X and S launch than ever before in their history. That's pretty impressive. But again, if you are picking up a PS5, I do hope you enjoy it, and I'll be back tomorrow for a brand new episode of the show. But until then, have a good one, and peace.